that prematurely become aware of too many experiences and realities at once. Now, you all have pre-programmed openings at various stages of your life that will open the Kundalini to a certain level. It may not necessarily be that in this lifetime you will be fully activated. Maybe your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren will have that activation, or maybe it's not even in your genetics to do that. Some people are born fully opened. It depends on the mind pattern animating that body. Never, never should it be forced to open, because that's extremely dangerous. So when we do our chakra work, we always start with the brown, because the brown, being grounding and balancing, automatically precludes any activation from occurring that is not premature or inactive. Now, many of you have seen this symbol. It's called a lightning bolt. Sometimes you see it on a product. You see it on television a lot of cartoon characters have it. This lightning bolt symbol is a hyperspace archetype, which means artificial activation, especially for Kundalini. So when you see this, what do the Nazis used to have on the Gestapo insignia? Double lightning bolt. Artificial activation. Very powerful. Double intensity. That's what you're seeing on a lot of products that are being sold these days. Now, there are two types of energies that enter the body as far as your chakra system is concerned. Physical energy and non-physical energies. What could be an example of a physical energy that would enter the body? It's a natural energy that emanates from physical reality naturally, like gamma radiation, ultraviolet, gravity, solar energy. All of these things that are natural to the environment radiate into your body and enter it through the root chakra, where it then goes up the spinal column to the pineal gland and is redistributed where necessary. Non-physical energies from the astral levels and hyperspace levels enter the body through the crown chakra and enter then to the pineal gland, where they are then distributed where needed. So what's the pivotal point of these energies in the body? Pineal gland, which is why we keep it balanced, so that it's distributed evenly. Very important. So constantly you're getting this flow through the body from physical and non-physical sources, swirling through your body and being balanced by the pineal. That's really what is called the sympathetic nervous system. Have you heard of sympathetic nervous system? Now, what happens if you have a block at some part of your spinal column and if you can't flow properly? And that would cause a subluxation to occur that then would need to be readjusted. That's what that's all about in your spinal column. Spinal column is, for all intents and purposes, a conduit of electrical wires. That's really what it is. It goes from the generator to the outlets. That's basically what your body's about. You're an electrical system. Now, we're going to get into the spinning part. Now, when we spin horizontally, not as a vortex, but horizontally, we're going to go either clockwise, which is left to right, or counterclockwise, which is right to left. How will we know which way we need to go in the morning? Chakra spinning should be done in the morning before you even get out of bed. How do you know which way to go? Well, mentally ask yourself, wake up, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to balance my T-bar, and then I'm going to say, okay, which way am I going? I personally always like to go counterclockwise, from right to left. What does that mean when you go counterclockwise? You're spinning from right to the left. The meaning is, why your body needs to do it that way, is you have an overabundance of non-physical energies that need to be redistributed to the physical body. Counterclockwise is overabundance of non-physical energy that needs to be redistributed to the physical side. Overnight, the kind of energies that you're naturally pulling in. Contrarily, if you feel the need to go clockwise, from left to right, that means that you have too much physical energy that needs to be redistributed to the non-physical side. Now, every morning when you wake up, you're going to ask yourself which way I need to go. Whichever way you start, that's the direction you keep all the way up. Do not ever change direction in midstream. You stay in the same direction from bottom up. If you need to go clockwise, then it's clockwise all the way up. And it's always bottom up. Now, you may wake up one day and feel you need to spin another way. But for the most part, predominantly, there'll be one direction that suits you the best most of the time. And that's simply because of the way you're built. That's simply because of your particular structure that needs it to be that way for most of the time. There's no way that's any better or worse, it's just how you are. And when we spin, we always again start with the brown. Bottom of the feet to top of thighs, we spin, either clockwise or counterclockwise, in and around the body. It's not just around, it permeates the whole body, as if you are submerged in that color. Then the next color is really the beginning of the chakra system, and that's the pale red from the top of the thighs to the pubic bone. That's pale red. Again, in and around the body. Next is the pale orange from the pubic bone to the navel. Very narrow band of pale orange. Next, from the navel to the sternum is a pale yellow color. That's the solar plexus. From the sternum to the collarbone, the heart chakra, is a medium green color. Medium green, just like you see on the chakra tube there. Here, medium green. We're going to go over what the colors mean because shading is important. Then from the collarbone to the tip of the nose is the thyroid or throat chakra, and that's ice blue, real icy blue color. That's your communication center. Then, from the tip of your nose to the top of your forehead is a royal blue, like the color of the folders you have. and that is the pineal area. It's also the area where your senses are located or based. And finally, the very top of the head or skull area is the crown, and that's violet. Now be very careful about the differentiation between violet and purple. People get them mixed up all the time. And so, in the back of the Healer's Handbook, I have a color chart, and I purposely put violet and purple next to each other so you can see the difference. In a lot of foreign countries, in Europe in particular, they use violet and purple interchangeably because they don't have words for purple. They just call it violet. And so we have to differentiate, call it blue violet or red violet. And that's how they know the difference. Violet has more of a reddish pink to it. Purple has more of a deeper blue to it. So there's a difference. Okay? So what we're going to do right now is we're going to actually together spin our chakra system in this tube form, in this cylindrical form, so that you feel a difference of the energies based on what you have been doing. And then you can see for yourself how the energy is. It doesn't matter if you're seated, standing, laying down, doesn't matter. Remember, hyperspace, there's no direction. It's just energy. So try not to put a human perspective that I need to be straight like a cylinder. It doesn't matter. It could be hanging upside down or whatever you like. But and then after we do that, we'll go through the meanings of the colors of your chakra system and why shading is so important. So are we ready to just quickly do a chakra spin, my version of it, which is your feet flat on the floor, hands at your side or on your lap. Quickly balance your T-bar so the energy is distributed evenly, or if you can't see your T-bar, use the royal blue circle with a dot in the middle at your pineal gland. And then, from the bottom of your feet to the top of your thighs, you will be spinning in brown in and around the body, either clockwise or counterclockwise. So choose right now which direction you feel is appropriate for you. Whichever direction you choose, that's the one you stay with all of the way. So you're spinning right now in brown, bottom of feet to top of thighs, in and around the body. Feel the brown. It's grounding and balancing for you. Now, from the top of your thighs to the pubic bone, you're spinning in and around the body in pale red, same direction as the brown. In and around the body now in pale red, top of thighs to pubic bone. That's your root chakra. From the pubic bone to the navel, you're spinning now in pale orange. In and around the body, same direction. From the navel to the sternum, you're going to spin in pale yellow, in and around the body, same direction. That's your solar plexus. From the sternum to the collarbone, you'll be spinning in medium green, in and around the body, same direction. Now from the collarbone to the tip of the nose, you spin in ice blue, in and around the body, same direction. Use a good ice blue in this area. From the tip of the nose to the top of the forehead is royal blue. In and around the body, same direction. And finally, the very top of the skull, the top of the head area, is violet. In and around the body, same direction. So now you're spinning from the brown up to the violet, from bottom of your feet to top of your head, in and around the body, all in the same direction. And when you've accomplished that, you can just become aware of the room. How did that feel compared to what you do usually? Any difference that you noticed? It keeps your energy intact. Nothing can get in or out. And the energy that's already in you is amplified within the cylinder. So it keeps you strong. Yeah, but then what's the other? Then you have empty spots. This keeps you contained, completely colored in, so to speak. Your chakra system is what really buttons your soul personality into your body. It's what keeps you intact. And what Alzheimer's disease is all about is that you're unbuttoned from the top down, so that you lose this, whereas the rest stays intact. People can live for years with Alzheimer's and they're just shells walking around. That's the unnatural way of dying. The real or proper way of unbuttoning from the body is bottom up. This should be the last thing to go. But in society, and because of the way things have become, that's what Alzheimer's is all about. And if you know a patient or a person with Alzheimer's, and you now know where the colors are and how to use them, and you help them put those colors back, they can possibly regain use of their mentality. Also, it's very important to remember to keep the same direction all the way up, whatever you chose in the morning, because there are some modalities out there, at least one in particular that I learned about, that's teaching people to reverse the spins. One way, clockwise, the other way, counterclockwise, all the way up, reverse. That's very dangerous. And logically, if you think about it, if you have a wet cloth and you start going like this to the cloth, what happens to the water in there? It's wrung out. So if you do that with your energy system, you're wringing out your energy. You're depleting yourself. Never do that. Always keep same direction all the way, and always bottom up, never top down. What would happen if you spin top down? You're actually turning yourself off. It's unscrewing you instead of putting the light bulb back in, so to speak. So always bottom up, always in the morning. The only time I ever recommend ever going top down is if you've experienced an event that was so traumatic that you would have to be sedated for hours. In that case, instead of taking medication, then I can understand spinning top down to turn yourself off. But hopefully, none of you will ever have that need. I also recommend that you do this in the morning before you get out of bed, because it energizes you and recalibrates your energy system for the rest of the day. If you do it at night, it's going to charge you up and you're going to have difficulty sleeping. So the only time I would recommend doing it in the evening or night is if you know you're going to be up all night or you have some place to go for several hours and you need to be re-energized, then you can do it again maybe in the late afternoon to energize yourself. But other than that, don't. You'll have a hard time sleeping. Now, we're going to talk about the actual meanings of the colors, because that's part of language of hyperspace. That's one of the triad parts, is the color. Now, we always start with a pale red. I understand that for many, many years, those of you who've studied chakra systems and that kind of work, they always tell you to use bright electrical colors in your body. But that's not correct, because that's not what your body's all about. The root chakra is actually a pale red. Actually, I skipped something. We need to talk about brown. I don't have a brown one, so I'll just write in black. And what does brown do? We said it was grounding, balancing. What else? Like a safety net. And as far as time is concerned, time travel or mental time travel, brown represents the present moment. The here and now. That's what brown is about. What about pale red? Very simply, pale red is an energizer. What else? It's also male creativity. And what happens if we use a brighter or darker red? What does that color mean? It represents anger, frustration, pain or hurt. That's why we keep it to the pale red. It's just plain energy, booster, like a booster energy. And in your notes you could put darker red or bright red is anger, frustration, hurt, and even aggressiveness. What is pale orange? Well, we're going to learn today in one of our visuals, actually tomorrow we're going to learn that. Pale orange is the color of absolute truth. It's also the color of female creativity. What else? It can also be used to replace sunlight. What is dark or bright orange? Dark or bright orange represents heavy sexuality. Red also? For males. Females it would be bright orange. And you'll notice in many police departments, when they dress the prisoners in their prison garb and they're transporting them, very often they're in the pale orange jumpsuit, because they know they'll be more truthful that way. That's why they dress them. It's not an accident. They know about the colors. But darker orange has a lot of also aggressiveness, hostility, heavy sexuality. A lot of rapists, if you look at their energy fields, have a heavy or dark orange and red in it. That's representing their mentality. This is supposed to be pale yellow. There it goes. Can you see that? What does pale yellow represent? Pale yellow represents digestion and absorption. That's why it pertains to the digestive system. Also represents understanding. And also has to do with the nervous system. Now, darker or brighter yellow has to do with ELF, or extra low frequencies, mind control devices, technological devices emit darker or bright yellow colors. Also, people who take medicines or unnatural herbs generate a dark yellow color around their pineal area. It can also be a medicinal effect. That's why if I have a private consultation with someone and I see darker yellow in this area or someplace else on the body, I'll ask, are you on some type of a medication? Because if they're not, that means they're being bombarded with ELF. So that's very important to know why they would have that. And that's also important to see why the shading is so important to the meaning of the color. It's not generic, because something is yellow, it means X, Y, and Z. It depends on the shade of the color. Mustard yellow represents toxins or fear. So we don't want to ever see a mustard yellow color in a person, because then we would say that person has a toxin in them or they're afraid of something. Generally, you see it in the heart chakra area when there's fear involved. If you see it here, then it generally means there's some kind of toxin in their digestive system. Particularly, I noticed that in people in Florida had a lot of darker or mustardy yellow in their digestive area, and yet they were not on medication. And then I realized that they were drinking their water, which is full of sulfur, and sulfur can also leave a mustard yellow color in the digestive system. Next is medium green. Well, this is the heart chakra area. And medium green has to do with emotions. It's also the color of oxygen. And time-wise, green is related to the past. And can also energetically represent growth. Now, if I have an olive green color, if I'm looking at a person and I see that person has a lot of olive green here, what could that represent? Olive green represents negative emotions or aggressiveness from the past. That means they're bringing up old issues from the past that are disturbing them. When I see lime green, I have to ask a question. Lime green represents jealousy. And so I need to ask, is someone jealous of that person or is that person jealous of someone else? Here again, I would see it mostly in the heart chakra area. Now these colors that I'm telling you that have a negative connotation to them, these are colors that you may see in a person's energy field, but you must never put them in a person's energy field. We could see them, we need to understand what they mean, but we must never put them in. If we're doing healing work on somebody, never put those colors that I'm giving you, the negative ones, inside an energy field. I'll go over that list with you in a moment. Now the next color is a ice blue. This is so ice blue it doesn't even show. So we're going to have to just improvise. Just put ice blue. This is really not ice blue, but an ice blue is a communication color. It also is a sign of depression. Especially if we see it in the heart chakra area. If I see ice blue in the thyroid, that's excellent. But if I see it in the heart chakra, that person is depressed. It also stops bleeding and pain. So that if I have a severe pain in any part of my body, and I immediately put ice blue in that area, pain will stop. And if you have a nosebleed or you get cut, immediately put ice blue mentally in the area, will stop the bleeding.
And it's interesting because all those colors is what I've learned with pranic healing. All those colors.
Yeah. And it will also reduce blood pressure, ice blue. So actually it's a nice thing for a person with high blood pressure to put the ice blue here to reduce their blood pressure, but if you hold it there too long, they're going to get depressed. So you have to know when to stop. And finally, ice blue represents the very near future. Just like I should go back here and tell you that very pale green or light green is the immediate past. Yeah, I just put generally, yeah. Oh, and you can also use ice blue. If a child or anybody has a fever, you put them in ice blue, will reduce the fever. Now we have royal blue. Very, very important pineal color. All of the senses are located in the royal blue area. It is also a color that represents hyperspace. It's your color code, entry code into hyperspace. Royal blue also can represent the far future. And when you are doing a visualization or you're in hyperspace and you happen to see some object in royal blue can also represent technology. And here's a color code sequence that you may frequently see, because we mentioned that darker or bright yellow is an electromagnetic field. We also know that royal blue can represent technology, so that if I see a ceiling fan or a light or a lamp like this, I may see the object itself in royal blue surrounded by a dark or bright yellow haze. That represents the technology and the energy emanating from it. So be aware when you see that, you're looking at technology and the energy that it's producing. Careful here about navy blue. We never put navy blue in a person's body. Navy blue is the opposite of olive green. It represents negative or hostile emotions or events pertaining to the future. So that if you are looking at a person's energy field and you see a lot of navy blue around the head area, you can be sure that that person is thinking about the future in a worried, concerned way. They're very afraid of what might happen in the future, and that's creating navy blue in the head area because their thought patterns are producing that. And then finally, as far as the body's concerned, we have violet. Now, violet is a protection color. We're going to go over protection techniques. It also acts as a filter for energies or purifier. Violet also has a high spiritual connotation to it. It's a very spiritual color. And can represent interdimensional travel. So that if you see something appear to you in a violet flash or a violet color, and you don't know what it is and it's trying to communicate with you, it is some type of interdimensional entity or being or technology, but something coming through dimensions, and so it appears in a violet color. That's why it's at the top of your head. Remember, violet has to do with entry of non-physical energies from astral hyperexactly. And then it also filters it at the same time as it comes in. That's why if you're working with someone, let's say you're doing spiritual work, and you notice that someone's crown chakra does not have a violet in that area, that's dangerous for that person because they're not filtering the energies and anything can go in there. That's why if you also see that dark yellow on top of a crown area, you can be sure that's not medicinal on the crown. That's an ELF entry. Someone's being controlled or monitored that way. And something very important to understand about all of these energy systems and colors. There's a big difference between the chakra system and the aura. I call it an energetic web, but the common term is an aura. What is the difference between your chakra system and your aura? People think it's the same thing, just like they think ET and alien is the same thing, and it isn't. There's a difference between your chakra system and your aura. Every healthy, normal human being should have these central core colors in their chakra system in order to be healthy. No matter who or what you are, or what you're thinking, you should have these in your chakra system. That's like the central column of your energy field. Around that is your aura. That changes constantly with how you think and how you feel. That changes the colors around you. So if you're learning how to be a mentalist or psychic and you want to actually learn to see the colors, learn to see past the aura into the chakra system. That will tell you about the person's health. Then this around them will tell you about how they're thinking and feeling. Understand? You could see any colors in the aura, but the chakra system should be that. Think of this like the underwear, and this is the outer clothing. Okay? And you all should wear white underwear, in case you have an accident. No, there are no accidents. Big X through that. No accidents. May I erase this?
Were there any negative blue colors associated with that one?
Only thing negative really about ice blue is that if you hold it for too long, it can make you depressed. And also it can make you feel cold. It can make you feel cold and depressed. Very often, if you're able to see colors in a field, you look at a very elderly person, a lonely person, and you see they're kind of icy blue in color because they're lonely and they're depressed and isolated. And so they feel that way. Very often elderly people have an icy blue color around them. One thing I need to tell you about, I know a lot of people come up to me at seminars and lectures and they say, oh, look at my aura picture. I just took this at the booth. I'm going to tell you something. Those things are phony. They're not real aura pictures. Auras don't look like that. And especially when I hear about the descriptions of the colors, oh, this means you're spiritual. They never have a bad description of anybody. They're always wonderful and spiritual. Oh, this red, you're spiritual. Yeah. And you also notice that when you sit down on that chair to get your color taken, they tell you to hold on to those two rods. Anyone ever do that? They make you hold on to these two posts. Those are electrical posts that are sending charges through your body. That's what the camera is photographing. It's photographing the field that's generating around you. That's what it's not your aura, it's an electrical field. And they'll change the colors, the machine, it's a computer, and they'll make this one green and that one red and that one blue, and they'll change it so no one has the same picture. It's a scam. The only legitimate aura or energetic pictures that exist are with Kirlian photography. Kirlian photography is not portable. It's a pretty big machine, and it's only for scientific and governmental use. You will never see it at an expo. Just let you know that. You can do it for fun, but it's not really you. Okay? Just want you to know that. I'll tell you what, I can use that board even though it won't be on camera. I wonder if they'll get mad at me for that. I want to give you a list of colors never to put in a person's energy field because it would be damaging to them. And some of it may be interesting to you when you hear about it. So I can erase this then? Okay. And these are colors that we never place in the body. Now, some of them we already spoke about. We said that we never use dark or bright red, dark or bright orange. What else? We also said no dark or bright yellow, navy blue, and also we're not going to use mustard yellow. We said that was not a good thing to use. That's toxins and fear. We also mentioned olive green and lime green. And when I say lime green, that also means yellow green, or whatever other terms you want to use. That yellowish green we don't use. What else did we say? Anything else?
You mentioned that
Right. Well, purple is okay to put in a field. It means something else, but we'll get to that. We don't ever put in black. Now, that doesn't mean black necessarily is bad or negative. It just means it can be one of a couple of things. So depending on our intent, we have to know what we're doing. Black can mean depth of thinking. If I look at a person and I see some darkness around the head, like black around the head, that doesn't mean they're going to pass away. That means they're very deeply thinking about something. That's what it means. If I see black around the entire body, black can mean a void or emptiness. Very often you see that in cancer patients. It also can mean hiding or something secret. So if you see someone who's totally, the aura is in black, most likely that is a very psychic or able mental person who is hiding their true energy and doesn't want you to see them. That's a very powerful person. And that's what's really meant by a black magician. That doesn't mean they're evil or bad or that they wear black. It really meant that they were hiding their energy field in black so that you couldn't tell what or who they were. That's what a black magician really is. They keep their things hidden. So we don't put that in a person because we don't know what that person's mind pattern is going to do with the black. The black could make them like a void. They could just be like completely blanked out. We also don't put gray. Gray means doubt and confusion. So when we see, for example, when I look at a person and I see gray in this second or root chakra area, that says that person is confused and doubtful about their creativity and their productivity. They're not sure what to do with themselves. Very often if you see someone who's unemployed or they don't have a job and they don't know what to do, there's a lot of gray around them because they're confused and doubtful about themselves. We also don't use hot pink. Hot pink is lust. Now, of course, you might want to put that around you at some time, if you're in a bar or what have you, but we do not put that in somebody's energy field. And if you happen to see that in someone's energy field, you know what they're after. What if you see a person, and then you probably see this in a male figure, a combination of bright red, bright orange, and hot pink in their energy field? What would you do with that person? I would stay away. That person has very hostile, aggressive tendencies. Most likely would be a rapist. Yeah, so you stay away. And here's, do I have most of the colors that I said so far? Because the next one's going to surprise you. Okay, I think I can go to the next one now. And I want you to think about this after I explain it to you. We also never put white in a person's energy field. And I'm going to ask you a question. When it's summertime and you're driving around in the summer, what color car is the best car to be in the heat and sun?
White.
Why?
Reflect.
Reflects away energy.
Black absorbs, white reflects.
So, if you hold white light around yourself or another person, what's that doing to their chakra system? It's reflecting it away and killing them. This is why when people have visions of departed relatives or angelic figures, they see them in white. Why? Because they have no living chakra system. That's right. 99% of the time you see those beings in white because they're not alive physically. So you never put white in or around a person's energy field because you'll be reflecting away their natural color.
What about the combination of white and gold?
Doesn't matter, the white will reflect away the gold. Yeah, make sure you know what you're doing. Now let me give you another thing. White can be used as a temporary flush. For example, let's say you're doing your cleansing breath and you really feel junky today, you really feel like you have a lot of junk in you, you can quickly use a white flush to flush that out and then get rid of the white. And then put the normal colors in there. But never hold that in or around yourself or another person because that will reflect away all your chakras and you'll be in trouble. Now this is a perfect time to go into protection techniques. How many of you have your own protection techniques that you do? Yeah? Only one of you? How many of you do hands-on healing work? So this is going to be very important for you. And we're going to talk about protection techniques. As you know from what we talked about last night and this morning, that there is a lot of bombardment of electromagnetic waves, mind control stuff, negativity, and all around you all of the time. And especially if you're in large groups of people, or if you work in areas where there's a lot of technology and there's a bombardment of electromagnetic fields on you constantly on your system, you need to protect yourself to keep your energy intact. Especially those of you who do work hands-on with people, where you touch them, you could pick up their contamination, they can pick up yours. So one very, very good protection technique, which is all in violet, remember, violet is protection and filtering, is to surround yourself with an egg-shaped energy field. You're inside of it, and it's filled with a violet color. And the shell, or outside of the egg, is a mirror facing away from you. So that if anybody looked at you energetically, they would see a mirror in the shape of an egg. And what does this do? Any energies coming towards you are deflected back to the sender by the mirror, and any energies that happen to penetrate the mirror are filtered by the violet inside and keep you safe. I recommend you do this when you're sitting in front of the computer, when you're working hands-on, when you're in large crowds in a city, when you're in an area filled with technology. You'll know when you need to protect yourself. This is very important, most common technique. Another simple technique is to put yourself or your loved one in violet hands like this around you as a protection. Even when you're driving your car, you can keep violet hands under the car like this or like this as a protection, like this or like this. Same thing in any vehicle in which you are traveling. Another protection technique, which many of you may have seen, I call it the ring or the halo. That's what they have them on religious photos or paintings, of a ring or halo over the top of the crown area. But what is it really doing? Coming down from that ring are violet energy rays or threads that act like a curtain of protection around you. Yeah, and it's completely enveloping you. That's why they drew halos over people's heads in religious paintings. You can also add to this either silver or gold overlay to the violet as a protection. For your home, okay, this is your home. Let's say there's a storm coming or some violence is in the atmosphere. You can literally put your home in a dome like this, filled with the violet and the mirror on the outside. I would also suggest, because such things are underground as well, that you complete with a circle or a circle, because there's stuff coming up from underneath as well that you don't even realize. The earth, as we'll find out tomorrow, is really hollow. So, very important you cover the top and the bottom, all angles. Now, I need to ask you all a question. How many of you have heard of the Bible Code, the book, the Bible Code, where, by putting the ancient Hebrew language directly into a computer without spaces, the computer showed that coded into the wording were sequences that connected certain letters together and formed multidimensional shapes. Now, when they put all the shapes together and they asked the computer, what is the master shape that is the shape of all shapes and everything comes from it, and would also therefore be the most perfect protection because it would literally be the shape of God mind, the computer came up with a tetrahedron inside an octahedron. It's hard to draw, so bear with me. A tetrahedron is a three-sided pyramid on a flat base. This would be a tetrahedron. Three-sided pyramid on a flat base. Really has four sides, but three are the triangular. An octahedron is, really, if you know how the pyramids look in Egypt, the four-sided, well, one on top and one on the bottom. That's an octahedron. And so, octahedron that would be an octahedron. And the whole thing would be in violet. And whatever you're protecting is in the middle there, in the center of the tetrahedron. This works as a super fantastic protection technique. Think of it as the master protection of everything. In fact, the image is so powerful when you create it that it lasts for 3 or 4 days. All these others need to be recreated every so often during the day. This one lasts for 3 to 4 days before it dissipates. You really only need to do it twice a week if you were protecting yourself or another person or a thing. When you fly or you're in a vehicle, it's a good idea to keep the vehicle in the very center of the tetrahedron, inside the octahedron, all in violet, all of it in violet. Someone told me that as an extra added dimension or super duper, really overkill, you could put a ring of gold around the whole thing, or gold and silver, like you would at the halo, only be gold and silver around all that. It's really superfluous, but look, it couldn't hurt you. So, remember this ultimate protection technique. It lasts a very, very long time. And a lot of people have difficulty conceptualizing it mentally because it's really 2 different shapes in one. And really 3 because you're putting whatever you're protecting in the center of the whole thing. So you first want to put yourself or whoever you're protecting first, then build the tetrahedron around that. Then once you have that in your head, then put the octahedron around that. All in violet. And nothing will ever happen to you. What color should you never use when you're flying? Well, you shouldn't use that anywhere. But what color would be very dangerous to use when you're flying? Well, you're sitting on it. Brown. Yeah, don't ever use brown when you're flying. Keep the plane and the protection in violet and or gold. Highest level. Now white is the highest energy possible. It's a very powerful, powerful energy. But it's so powerful it destroys physical reality. That's the problem. It belongs in non-physical. The highest color that operates successfully in physical is the gold. Once after that, you're starting to eliminate the... in fact, what happens in an atomic blast? White flash. Nothing left. Any questions on any of the colors or the healing techniques or combinations or anything like that? These, they're as needed. Usually they'll last several hours. You'll start to feel like you need to do it again. You'll have an inner knowing that I need to regenerate this. But this one, as I say, is so powerful, lasts 3 to 4 days before it dissipates. And also don't forget the violet hands also as a covering. So may I erase this here? Now in your folders that I handed out to you, I don't know what side of the folder is on. Oh yeah, it should be on your left. You're going to see 3 sheets. Now, hopefully they're correct. That have archetypes on them, symbols. And another one that says, learning a new language. Now make sure that your sheets are double-sided. Turn them over. Are there things on the other side? Okay, you have the double-sided ones? Yeah? Yeah, so literally you actually have 4 pages of a brief dictionary and then a 5th page which is like sentences. Yes, you all have that? Okay. Now, what you have there is actually a rudimentary dictionary of hyperspace symbols. Those of you that have the Healer's Handbook, there is a more comprehensive dictionary in there that goes into a lot more elaborate techniques. But for our purposes here right now, we're going to learn very basic Hyperspace 101. So what you should do is look briefly over these meanings of the archetypes on those first couple of pages, and then try to translate the sentences on this page that have the language of hyperspace on it. It says, learn a new language. And what I suggest is that as you go through your dictionary, underneath each character, you write the meaning of the archetype, and then you write a cohesive sentence pulling all the meanings together. Now, don't change the order of the archetype. Don't switch them around in order to accommodate a sentence, but rather make the sentence what the archetypes are saying in the order in which you see them. Also, I have, as those sentences, you're going to see 4 symbols on those sentences. When you see an archetype sentence with 4 symbols in it, that is always a DNA sentence. Who knows why it would be a DNA sentence with 4 symbols in it? If you know, we're going to learn tomorrow, but I'll just give you a little hint today, that there are 4 protein bases to DNA, and as each one ignites, as you activate your DNA, it gives off its symbol, creating a DNA sentence. So it's literally helping you know it's in your DNA structure. What happens in a sentence where there's only 3 symbols? What does that mean? Try to remember this morning the levels of awareness. The number 3. If you're getting a sentence of 3, that is a sentence directly from your mind pattern, from the levels of awareness. And very often, Sometimes you'll only get one. Usually one is a complex archetype, and it's usually like a paragraph. Where have you seen those in the world? Where have you seen a complex archetype in the world that needed to be translated? They're on the news every summer, usually. No idea, huh? They're crop circles. Which they're really not circles, they're complex archetypes that need to be deciphered. If you get a symbol that's something else, let's say you get 2 or 5, then there's something incomplete. You missed one. If you're receiving a sentence that's on 2 or 5, etc., generally they're 1, 3, or 4. So take your time and go over each of the sentences. Remember, write the name or the meaning underneath, and then make a cohesive sentence that pulls it all together without changing the order of the symbols in the sentence. Now I'm going to tell you that on some of them, well, especially the ones towards the bottom, I threw in a little extra symbols in them that you'll need to think about. Now, when you get a complex archetype, in order to translate it, you need to break out the pieces into the components and understand what the components mean. But you have in those other sheets all the pieces you need, all the components are there. It's just a question of how you put them together. Don't worry about that last line down there. It says write 3 sentences of your own. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. How are we doing? You're not going to be graded, so don't worry about what kind of sentences you write. Okay. Have we done at least the first couple on top? So, who wants to volunteer for this number 1 on the very top? Anybody? Don't be afraid. Yes. Sure.
Messages from the DNA expand in intelligent entities.
Fine. Absolutely fine. How did we know, or you know, that this was expand?
Expand and cancel.
What would tell you the difference? Let's say you got this sentence mentally in your work. How would you know by color if this was expand or cancel? Remember something. The archetypes can appear in any color, and the color refines the meaning. I did them here in black and white because they're generic. I wanted you to just get the idea of translating. But just for your own benefit so that you know, here's so that you know. Let's look at the chakra tube. Basically, if it's below this point, it's cancel or remove. And if it's above this point, it's multiply or expand. So if you saw it in royal blue or violet, it means expand or multiply. If it was in brown or red, most 99% of everybody uses expand, because that shows you're a positive thinker. But so that you understand, it can mean something else depending on the color. Here's another question for all of you. You translated it from left to right, because that's what your culture told you to do. How do you know? Maybe you got it from right to left, or up to down. I want you to also keep in mind then, that archetype sentences can come in any direction, because there is no spatial procedure from hyperspace. It could be any way. So always translate them in the order in which you received it. Always keep that in mind.
Show up like up and down.
Diagonal, backwards, upside down. There's no difference to hyperspace, because there is no spatial perspective. Now, what if it was from right to left? How would you translate it that way?
Intelligent entity expands the DNA.
Okay. Or an intelligent entity expands DNA by way of the method. Remember, you can put filler words, because this language of hyperspace, was never meant to be spoken or even written. It's mental. It's designed for instant understanding and transmission. It's downloaded in your mind pattern. So we're just struggling to physicalize it and make sense out of it, just for the point of understanding. But as you progress on the work that you do, it'll become an instant comprehension. How about the second sentence? Anybody? Oh, fine. What if it was the other way around? Conscious perfection through the crown chakra brings balance. Okay. How about that number 3? I put a little bit of a twist in there, but you still have the components that you could decipher it. So how would that be? Very good. You did it right to left, okay. And if it was the other way? You could say in the other way, space and time brings conscious awareness for human beings. Or you could say human beings, awareness of their reality is through time and space, which is true. What if the human being archetype was in red? What would that say about that person? Or if I just had this archetype in red? Or if you saw that symbol, what would that say to you? Well, I would say, if I saw that, I'd say that's an angry person. If you see a person all in red, are you going to say, oh, hi, how you doing?
No.
Or you can go, okay. You know, that way. If you see someone in pale pink, what's pale pink? Unconditional love. Generally, if you see someone in pale pink, if you don't know them, you feel comfortable in their presence. Okay? If you see someone dressed in ice or steel blue, they're going to be a little harsh with you, a little cool, a little standoffish. People dress in the colors that are telling you their emotions for the day. Not an accident. Yes, you might say it's the only thing I didn't have that wasn't in the laundry, or so-and-so is visiting me today, was a present, I have to wear it. Maybe those are your physical justifications, but bottom line is your mind pattern arranged that to happen because that suited your personality for that day. And, yes, and gray, so we won't even discuss that. But if you decide to come tomorrow and say, I'll wear violet, make them think I'm spiritual and protected, but you're really in a bad mood, you won't be able to wear it. You'll say, you know, I just don't like this, and you'll take it off. Because it has to match this. And you can't fool yourself. You can't fool other people either, really. What about this number 1 on the bottom part?
Physical reality measures space and time.
Exactly. And the opposite?
Space and time measures the physical reality.
Exactly. What about the number 2?
Balances and expands the intelligent entities forever.
Or you could say balancing expands an intelligent entity eternally.
Oh, yeah.
You could say it that way. Or an eternal being, how about the other way? An eternal being expands and balances. See? What about number 3? Now everyone comes up with something else on this number 3. Any ideas? Don't be afraid.
Frequency and time expand. Pineal gland awareness for the human being.
Kind of close. What is a frequency in time? What does that mean? What is another term that you can use for that? You're going to be so surprised when you hear it. I guess you want me to tell you, don't you? That symbol here, on the bottom, is the archetype symbol for time travel. So we can read this by saying, time travel expands the awareness or consciousness of human beings. Or human beings' awareness is expanded through time travel. Now what if I had this symbol in green? What would that mean? Past. So this would be time travel to the past, or simply past time. For example, if you're telling a story in archetype, and you're telling someone that this happened a long time ago, you would just use this symbol in a darker green. The darker the green, the further into the past. The darker the blue, the further into the future. Now someone mentioned the difference between violet and purple. I told you what violet is, and purple has several other meanings. Purple represents deep space travel, also represents royalty, and physically, if you put purple through your veins and arteries, it removes plaque and cholesterol. So it has a lot of healing purposes to purple. Any questions on how to translate archetype sentences? What do you think your dreams are? When you dream, what do you think happens? Yes, you dream in symbols. What kind of symbols? Of course, it does depend on your depth of dreaming, the state of dreaming, if it's a real deep sleep or a light sleep. When you dream, depending on how deep you go into other realities, many people simply go into the astral level. Remember that the astral level is a borderline area between the physical and hyperspace. It's the boundary. It's the boundary. And so, it's a lot of physicality involved with it. So you can think of something and it materializes energetically, but looks physical, but it isn't. Beyond that is the hyperspace level, which is where you go in deep sleep. And in hyperspace, there is instant communication and transmission of pure energy. Just instant. And it's in archetype and color and tone.
I have a question with that. When I sleep, I go into such a deep sleep anymore that I've had a dog, 80-pound dog run across my body and never woke me. And I mean, I've had instances where I should have been awoken and I never come back till I'm ready. That
very deep sleep, yeah.
That's going into
Oh, yeah.
Because when that happens, because I've always been psychic as a kid, and I used to dream, my life as it was going on, but lately, since I've gotten into this, I'll go into these sleeps, and I generally won't come back with any dreams that I can remember.
You always dream, but not always remember them.
But I don't always remember. I mean, the second I wake up, I'd be tired too.
When you don't remember your dream, it's because the message in there isn't for your conscious mind. It's for the subconscious mind pattern. But what happens when you go into hyperspace dreaming? And you're dreaming or experiencing literally in symbol, color, and tone. Then when you come back to your body, because you do leave your body when you go to sleep, when you come back, your left brain says, does not compute. I have no reference point for this symbol stuff. What is it? Because the right brain's coming in with all this symbol, and the left brain says, what the heck is that? So what happens? The pineal gland kicks in and says, I will be the liaison, the translator. So the pineal gland puts pictograms over the archetype and strings them together like a story that you can consciously remember. So if you dream you were on a lake and you saw a tree, well, maybe you would also dreaming about a T-bar and a circle, but your left brain said, I don't understand that, so your pineal gland made this into a lake and put birds and flowers and things on the tree, or it might have made this into a pyramid, which could have been this might have been a house in your dream. You understand? DNA symbol very often appears as a railroad track or a ladder. Okay? These are all the symbols that's why you need to write down all of the dreams that you possibly can remember and then translate them so that you can see the message you're getting either from your genetic code or from your own mind pattern. Now, normally, a person sleeps 7 or 8 hours a night. That's a normal range. If you extrapolate that into a lifetime, and in the United States an average lifetime is 75 years, so a third of your day that you're sleeping, extrapolated to a lifetime means you were sleeping 25 years. A quarter of a century you are asleep. That's a very long time to not know what's going on in your life. A third of your life, you don't know what's going on. And you're conditioned when you're a little child and you have a dream or a nightmare and you tell someone, oh, it's just a dream. Don't worry about it. Don't pay attention to your dreams. They're just dreams. But they're extremely important because the life you live in your dream state is just as valid as your waking state. It's just that the rules and regulations are different, but they're just as valid. You are an entity, a conscious entity in all those realities. It's very important that you write them down. Very often in the dream state, you get communication from those who have passed on because it's easy to access you. And you may also get, very commonly, information and communication from an alternate self of you. Which, after we're going to take lunch in a few minutes, but after that, remind me to talk to you about your alternate existences that bleed through during your dream state, because you're able to then see the whole carpet instead of just a little piece. So that's what dreaming is all about. So we're going to take a break now. We're going to go to lunch and try to keep it to an hour or so. And then we'll come back and resume the rest of what we're doing for today. Any questions before we go lunch? On anything we've covered so far? No? So when you get a test, you're going to pass the test?
Oh, no, great, you're going to give us a test.
Well, I thought to see if you're paying attention. All right, so have a good lunch, and when you come back, we'll go over the rest. Just so that you know, if when I'm not here, or if you want to look around behind the black curtain, behind curtain number 1, are all the books and tapes that unfortunately had to get covered up for the backdrop. But please feel free to look at them; they're available for you. Okay.